New Hogwarts Legacy gameplay has been revealed, and we've combed through every scrap of footage, every secret to be explored, to bring you one of the most comprehensive looks at all the new goodness that awaits you on February 10th. Hey there friends, it's Codiak here, welcome back to Legacy Gaming. Let's dive into another spoiler-free Hogwarts Legacy video. When it comes to Hogwarts Legacy, one thing is going to set the tone for our adventures, and that is the world. Luckily, after over a decade of books, movies, theme parks, and more, the Portkey Games team has a lot to pull from when it comes to establishing Hogwarts and the surrounding area set in the 1890s. We've seen a lot of snippets leading up to launch, but nothing is quite as exciting as pure, unfiltered gameplay, showing off the world yet to be explored. In and around the castle, we saw a number of small interactables that don't play a huge part in shaping the gameplay, but help establish the world as full of magic. We saw enchanted shrubbery in the shape of a dragon. When players cast Accio on the shrubs, a jet of flowers shot out of its mouth just like fire from the maw of a dragon. It's also clear that the Quidditch pitch is a place very much waiting to be explored within the game. It's built to scale, no doubt about that, and as we've seen, albeit briefly, there's enough nods towards Quidditch that something will happen on the pitch at some point. We even see this world marker conveniently placed at ground level, something we're definitely curious about. A fun bit of fan service as players wander throughout the castle, howlers can be heard delivering angry messages to their recipients. This is a huge nod to various moments in the books and movies, and definitely helps make the castle feel more alive. Unconfirmed up until this point, we also saw a few instances of notes strewn about the castle. While it seems these aren't as abundant or dense as they're presented in other games, players that want to soak up every bit of Hogwarts Legacy lore will no doubt be poring over every document that they find. Animal lovers, rejoice! You can also interact with some of the creatures you find in the world, not just in your Vivaria, but roaming the castle. While I'm a dog guy myself, I was glad to see you can indeed pet the cat. Finally, an iconic character is brought to life in the form of Peeves. It's amazing to finally see this character fully realized with voice acting and animations, and very much present in the castle, causing chaos, tormenting students, and touching on his difficult past with former headmasters and caretakers. What shocked me, and I mean really shocked me, was how many little secrets and interactions the team has managed to shove into every corner of the game. We knew that collecting field guide pages and revealing secrets was going to be part of the achievement gameplay loop, but to see the depth of those interactions is really fun. Using Accio to snatch pages out of the air, using Revelio to unveil secrets hidden just out of sight, this is where the essential spells come into play, and it all ties back to world building. We all know questing is a fundamental part of any open world game, and the recently revealed footage gives us a great sense for how that's going to play out, both with the main story and side missions. What I think is important to understand is that main missions are pretty much on rails, which means it's not a true open world experience. As showcased by our friend ESO Danny here, as soon as you move too far away from the quest area, you get this huge warning to turn around. That's not a true open world experience, which is fine, but does restrict your freedoms within the game. Now, on the other hand, side missions seem to be a bit more forgiving. We saw at least 2 instances of these presented in the recent reveals, and both seem to be a lot more open in concept. While we didn't see anyone take the quest and go do something completely different, there's enough exploration happening between quest pickup and quest completion that leads us to believe there's more of an open world tint here. Quests don't seem to entirely hold your hand either, which I love about the game. We saw examples of quest areas, but within those identified locations, the player still has to put in some semblance of effort. In my opinion, this is the right balance, because if you constantly lead a horse directly to the water, it cheapens the experience and removes that layer of immersion and discovery that is often so important in RPGs. You can cast a small little spell to illuminate your path to the quest area, something we saw on occasion, which I do think is helpful, especially with an area as dense and vertical as Hogwarts Castle, but still, it's not giving away the store. In terms of quest rewards, we're talking currency, experience, and sometimes items. We saw examples of gear and even room of requirement items rewarded upon quest completion, which should incentivize everyone to explore and help out their fellow students in and around the castle. It's not clear how many side missions will pop up in the game, but we've heard the main story will take around 35 hours to complete. I always question numbers like this because they're never spot on, but that's simply because everyone takes games at their own pace. Seeing so many gear rewards got me really excited about how all of the systems will feed into the upgrade progression loop within the Room of Requirement, but possibly more important for a lot of players is the transmog potential. Now confirmed, transmog will be accessible from anywhere in the world by simply engaging with the gear menu. Players will be able to maintain the stat properties of their equipped gear while changing the external aesthetic to however they want to look in the Wizarding world. One thing that's abundantly clear about Hogwarts Legacy is that this is not necessarily a kid-friendly game. In fact, there are plenty of dark undertones to the content that we've seen revealed. A few things stand out. First is the companion quest that takes the player and Poppy Sweeting to the outskirts of the forest to investigate a dragon smuggling operation. We're talking full-on dragon cockfighting rings happening just a few Quidditch pitches away from Hogwarts. What's even worse, when you enter the magically enhanced tent obscuring the operation, you realize just how much the developers lean into this idea of exploiting animals for the gain of others. It's dark, but it doesn't stop there. On the way to discovering this operation, the player gets a glimpse of a Dugbog ambushing a stag as it's drinking out of a small pond. Much like an alligator pulling its victim into the water to drown them, it's a vivid moment that really shocked me and helped me understand that Hogwarts Legacy is a game tapping into something much different than Harry Potter ever did. Finally, I think it's worth calling out again that your character has the ability to pretty much kill anyone with the flick of a wrist. This was so apparent in the climactic battle to free the enslaved dragon. Without so much as a second thought, the player can cast an unforgivable curse, or channel ancient magic and watch his enemies simply disappear from existence. It'll be interesting to see if this is ever actually addressed head-on in the game. As we know in Harry Potter, as soon as you cast one of these spells, the Ministry of Magic is all over you, so how will this play out in Hogwarts Legacy, if at all? Speaking of combat, we got a truly unfiltered look at how combat will work within the game. And while we've seen combat play out a few times now, this is by far our best look. What's most revealing is the lack of a true lock-on system. Instead, players will need to face the target they want to attack. It's a more fluid, more challenging system to master, but taps into the more chaotic nature of the combat the developers are looking to establish. What's clear after listening to dozens of content creators share their thoughts on the system? It's difficult, and even some who have been playing and covering games for decades admit to the learning curve. Keep in mind, players can set the difficulty to story if they want to reduce the overall combat difficulty, but I think everyone should be prepared for a challenging experience nonetheless. For the first time, we also got a clear look at the spell interface, 23 spells stretched across 6 different schools of magic. As you can clearly see, many of the spells are still locked, and while the developers haven't confirmed the exact number of spells in the game, it seems odd to present spells as locked instead of just not there if there were more to discover. It's also clear that not everything on the list is a combat spell. For example, the light blue spells are more utility in nature. We see the Disillusionment Charm, Lumos, and Reparo, which we know aren't directly tied to fighting, but rather assisting the player with challenges in the world. The new footage also gives us our first taste at unblockable spells. Using Protego to time and counter basic enemy attacks will be a huge part of the back and forth nature of combat in the game, but there are, as expected, spells that can't be blocked. Instead, players will have to dodge those attacks, which could potentially mess with your line of sight, and thus, your targeting. It's another thing we'll have to adjust for, and with both magical and physical attacks constantly assaulting the player, this is a perfect showcase of how chaotic combat truly is within the game. Speaking of combat, let's talk about stealth, something we've been waiting to learn more about for quite some time. Hogwarts Legacy looks to have a basic system in place that is more about function than depth, which is a bit of a letdown, but not too surprising. Players can cast the Disillusionment Charm on themselves to reflect their surroundings. It's not a pure stealth like wearing the invisibility cloak, but it's mighty effective. Much like stealth detection in other games, as you get closer to enemies, they become aware of your presence. If you linger too close without taking any action, they'll be able to identify you and attack. Within stealth, you'll only have one option, to use Petrificus Totalis to indefinitely stun enemies. After a short period of time, enemies that are stunned simply disappear from the world, which is a bit funny, but I suppose that's magic for you. That's really the system in a nutshell. Like I said, more function than anything else. It explains why the stealth talent tree is so small with just 4 upgrades to enhance. I would venture a guess that those talents are going to be pretty basic, probably extending how long it takes enemies to detect us, allowing us to cast Petrificus Totalis from further away, things like that. There's just not a ton of room for creativity with a system so simple. While not directly part of the stealth system, I always like to include lockpicking alongside anything stealth related because the two systems are often linked in RPGs. In the case of Hogwarts Legacy, the Alohomora spell allows players to unlock chests and contraptions found around the game world. To do this, players will have to complete a minigame where a red and green orb need to be slotted to a corresponding notch in the mechanism. Based on what we heard from other creators, a lot of folks struggled with this, which doesn't bode well for the more casual community, but with systems like this, a little practice goes a long way. We also learned that there will be various levels of difficulties for those locks, which I imagine will tie into the talent system in some way. Players that don't have the right level of proficiency simply won't be able to engage with that lock. Since it was revealed, we've all been talking about flying around the wizarding world. While not a new reveal, we got a really great look at what the broomstick mechanics would look and feel like in Hogwarts Legacy. It's clear after talking to a number of creators that the mechanics take a bit of getting used to. It is nice to see there aren't as many limitations on this system as first thought. For the most part, players can utilize their brooms with great freedom, soaring high above Hogwarts and zipping around the surrounding countryside. The mechanics themselves don't look particularly flashy, but I really didn't expect them to be. Just a very wizardy way to get from point A to point B or to explore the world. What is a new reveal is the introduction of swimming. Now, bad news here, this is only surface level swimming, so if you thought we'd be exploring the Black Lake, think again. But now knowing this exists is pretty cool. Without diving and underwater swimming, I don't think this will tie into a whole lot of gameplay systems as you're limited mechanically, but it does keep you immersed in the world. Nothing is worse than an open world game where you constantly run into imaginary walls as you try to explore, so this, in my mind, is necessary. Also confirmed is climbing or mounting, which again, I don't think will be a huge system within the game, but continues to build on the immersion. If you can see somewhere in the game world, you should be able to get there, whether it's by broom, thestral, or on foot. I think this does open up a few more options when it comes to exploration and secrets, but again, not a major system. I think it's also worth pointing out that while exploring the world, players will run across and be able to collect crafting reagents. We knew this was going to be the case, but what's most interesting to me is that there's no indication on the minimap of things to collect in an area. I think this is so smart, and knowing that Revelio is a huge part of discovering secrets in the world, I wonder if that's going to act like Odin's Vision did in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, allowing us to highlight elements in the world that we can interact with. To wrap up our video, I think it's worth talking about the really stellar voice acting and solid writing that will accompany much of the Hogwarts Legacy experience. While I'm not sold on the face animations, the talented voice artists they brought in to bring these characters to life are fantastic. Not only do they feel authentic to the lore, but they also fall right in line with expectations. There's no use in denying the movies exist, which set a precedent for how people talk in the wizarding world. Although decades earlier, the cheeky writing and authentically British accents really make me feel like I'm at Hogwarts. Characters like Poppy Sweeting, one of the main companions in the game, is really given a spotlight in the recent showcase. It's great to see her brought to life and the depth of her writing explored. It's clear she is a true advocate for magical creatures, willing to do whatever is necessary to protect them. What's not as exciting is the lack of gameplay interactions with these companions. As far as we can tell, in a combat situation, they might as well be standing against a wall and do nothing. There's no clever interactions or combos that we can tell, and that's a bit of a miss, albeit a small one. If the companion adds depth to this story, that's fantastic. I was just hoping they would add some level of complexity and interaction to the gameplay as well. That aside, in my mind, the voice actors have done a stellar job bringing these characters to life, and even in the one interaction with centaurs, it's amazing how enchanting the performances are, sucking you right into the magic and mystery of the world. Needless to say, I'm excited to see how much all of these companions and NPCs add to the overall Hogwarts Legacy experience. We are nearly there. Hogwarts Legacy releases on February 10th for PC and modern consoles, and I for one can't wait to dive into the wizarding world. As always, I urge cautious optimism with any AAA game because we've just been fooled too many times, but the developers' willingness to lay their game bare is a great sign of things to come. One thing is for sure, we're absolutely checking out the game on February 10th, and if you're interested in following along in our adventures, we'd love to have you along for the ride. Drop a like below and consider subscribing so you never miss out on a new video. Although Hogwarts Legacy is a single-player game, we still want to invite you to join our growing community on Discord. We've recently revamped the entire server with a special section just for Hogwarts Legacy, so check out the link below and join today. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.